Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Good Vibes Gaming discussion. I'm your host, Ash Paulson, and I am joined today by the one, the only, John Cartwright to talk about Puzzle Bobble Every Bubble. We both kind of like puzzle games. This one came across our desk, and we were like, hey, you know what? Let's check this out. Let's play it. Let's talk about it. John, how's it going, man?
I love bubbles. I love dragons. This is right up my alley. I've played the Buster Move series quite a bit in my time. And I was wondering, like, when did we get the international title for this game? Was this the first one? But I looked it up. In 2021, there was Puzzle Bobble VR Vacation... Oh, yeah, Vacation Odyssey. So this is the second Puzzle Bobble game we've got. And I'm enjoying my time. I've done quite a bit of the story mode. I played a bit of online. And it's not like redefining what Buster Move or Puzzle Bobble is, but it's just kind of like a very nice version of it, though.
It is, right? And I know neither of us have played, like, anywhere close to every single version, home version of Puzzle Bobble. Most of my time spent playing Busta Move / Puzzle Bobble can be traced back to one of the versions on Super Nintendo that we got out here in the States. Couldn't tell you which one it was, but I played hundreds of hours of that thing. I was obsessed with it, and I still have that theme song. It'll be etched in my brain forever. That dun 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 dun. Like, that's going to be in my brain forever. And then I played a lot of Puzzle Bobble in the arcades, of course, just various versions in the arcades and those like Neo Geo combination cabinets and various other arcade cabinets. And then I was reached out to about Puzzle Bobble Every Bubble, about getting a coverage code for it, and I was like, you know what? I haven't played a home version of Puzzle Bobble in years. I love this series. Let's go for it. And John, I know you're a fellow puzzle game lover, and so I reached out to you, and I was like, hey, you know what? You feel like checking this out together and doing a little discussion about it, so here we are. Yeah,
like, so far this year's been filled with the little boys, right? We've had Street Fighter, we've had Final Fantasy. It's about time you talk about Puzzle Bobble.
Yeah, exactly,
the biggest game of the year. Yeah.
The biggest game of the year. And this, of course, is in the midst of Zelda as well. Like, I don't even know when... Yeah, it's ridiculous. But Puzzle Bobble snuck out there in the midst of all this. And, my heart goes out to Taito, because they have to have known exactly what kind of release environment they were sending this into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think my main version of Buster Move prior to this, I played a lot of the ugly baby box art PS2 version with the baby, like with the reflections in its eyes. Yeah, that thing.
And the weird tooth, right?
Yeah, that caught my eye on store shelves. I was like, I've got to have this game. So that was my main one. But I've been playing quite a bit of this new one, and I'm enjoying my time with it. As I said earlier, it's not like redefining the series. It's just kind of more Puzzle Bobble. But that's not a bad thing, and it is kind of filled to the brim with puzzles in there. Like there's a full-on story mode, and I don't know how many puzzles there are in total, but it seems like there's hundreds. It just keeps going and going and going.
Well, yeah, like there's not only a ton of content in the regular story mode, but then there's like a whole EX mode thing where if you get all 3 stars in all stages in a chapter, then you get access to like dark EX versions of every stage. And in the first chapter alone, I'm actually checking it right now, in the first chapter alone, it's called Rainbow Village. There are 15 stages.
Yeah, 15.
So if you get all, I've gotten 3 stars in all but the last 2. So if I were to get the last star in those last 2 stages, suddenly I get another 15 stages to play that are even harder. And that is just the first chapter. So I haven't bothered with the EX stages yet, but like you, I've played into story mode for, a decent bit, the first several chapters. And there's a lot of content here, like you're saying.
Yeah. I was expecting the story to be a bit more prominent.
It
feels a bit like how Puyo Puyo Tetris does it, but not anywhere near to the same amount. Like, they sort of have a few lines of dialogue before the chapter starts, and then a few lines at the end of the chapter. But we're talking, like, a couple of lines each. It's not really the flavor of Puyo Puyo in there.
No.
It's just kind of like, oh, we've got to pop these darn bubbles, and then you play the game. That's kind of it.
That really is, yeah.
You don't really come to this game for story, though, of course. But it's like, I was expecting a little bit more than that.
I would have, of course, I agree. You don't come to Bust a Move or Puzzle Bobble for the story, but at the same time, I agree, because one of my very first, most formative games in my own life as a kid was Bubble Bobble. And that's one of my favorite NES games of all time. It is such a formative experience for me. And so I've had a lot of love from early on in my life for these really adorable characters and the world they inhabit, Bub and Bob. And I didn't know this until this game, but apparently their girlfriends who Bub and Bob rescue in Bubble Bobble, their names are Peb and Pab. I never knew that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so I've got a lot of love for these characters and their world. And so even though there's obviously not going to be a story here, much of one, I would have liked to see a little bit more interaction than just what you get at the beginning and the end of each chapter, right?
Yeah. It is a bit of a celebration of the series too, right? Like, you can play, I mean, the subtitle is Every Bubble, which means you can play with a bunch of people at once, and it has a co-op mode, so you can play with 4 people locally at the same time, and you can customize your characters too. So not only do you have the main crew and some other characters from across Bubble Bobble and Puzzle Bobble, but you can also just sort of change them a little bit, which is kind of neat. Especially when playing online, you can't just make your ideal little dragony avatar and just take them on the world, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah, so and by this, of course, we mean there are little customization items like fedoras and headphones and little other hats and things like that, just make these cute characters even cuter, which is kind of the whole. I mean, in terms of aesthetics and in terms of the presentation and everything, you probably know exactly what you're getting with this. Like, if you can't stand like super high pitched anime like sound bites and really crazy, hyper colorful anime visuals, yeah, you're probably not gonna love what you're seeing here. But if you are of that persuasion anyway, you're probably not gonna even be looking at a game that looks like this, right?
No.
Yeah.
And this kind of game lives and dies on the multiplayer.
Yes.
And I feel like it's really good here.
Yeah.
We haven't really had that many, modern games. It's been a long time since we had a Bust-A-Move game on console. I think the last one must have been like a decade ago, I'm pretty sure. Like 3DS, I think, was the last one we may have gotten that wasn't on phones. And so to have like a really modern one that you can play online is fantastic. And I was a little bit worried, because there isn't a whole lot of fanfare right now for this game. So I was wondering, like, will the online just be barren?
Right.
And I pressed the search button, and I immediately found a player. Quite a few times. Yeah.
Same, and I was happy to see that. Yeah. So I actually, the first time I played this game was actually in a Fight a Founder session with one of our amazing patrons. By the way, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/dvgaming. But with that said, so one of our patrons wanted to play this game with me right after it came out, and I was like, well, that's perfect, because we just got a coverage code for it, so that's great. And that was my first time playing Every Bubble specifically, was with this patron, and we played online for a good hour and change, and there wasn't a single hiccup. And by hiccup, I don't even mean a single frame drop. Like, this was the best online play I feel like you could hope for from a puzzle game on Nintendo Switch in terms of the connection quality.
Yeah. And it's just kind of your usual versus puzzle game rules. Like, you pop a bunch of bubbles, you send sort of like garbage bubbles to your opponent.
Right.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And even if I feel like the general package, there isn't a whole lot of variety, right?
No.
It's either just the story mode, which is doing a bunch of puzzles, the versus mode, which is just playing against other people, and then online, which is the exact same thing but online. But there's also a Space Invaders mode, which is a bit odd.
Right.
Where, like, you can have you or up to 4 other people just sort of popping bubbles, but there's Space Invaders rules where they'll slowly sort of come down and sometimes shoot beams at you. It's neat, but for some reason, it doesn't have leaderboards. Which, like, there's another mode within the story. There's like a central tower where you can do an endless sort of survival mode and submit that to the leaderboards. But the Space Invaders one, for some reason, is just like entirely to your console, which I don't know why.
Yeah.
I probably should have had leaderboards.
It's like this just kind of random side mode that they threw in there. It's kind of a novelty, but as you said, it's not connected to any sort of online leaderboards, and there isn't much to it. Like, once you played it for a few rounds, and especially once you've beaten it once, I don't know that there's much reason to go back to it. Not
really, yeah. But this is definitely the kind of game that I'll boot up every now and then just to sort of play online, like just kill a few minutes. And yeah, it's great that right now there's a community for it. The connection's great. And just the general aesthetics are good too. It's nice, well-drawn, colorful visuals. I wouldn't say the music's outstanding, but it fits it's a
fine.
Good tone. Yeah.
I would say that I actually do prefer that theme that's eternally etched into my brain. I wish that was in this, because I think I'd rather play with that than the default theme that you get for at least the multiplayer matches. So yeah, the music is fine. It fits, but it doesn't stand out in any way. I agree. But I do really love the character art and just the design of the user interface, the menus in general. It's so bright. It's so colorful. If you've played any one of the billions of rhythm games, Japanese rhythm games on Switch, you probably have a pretty good idea of what this looks like. Like, if you think of, like, Hatsune Miku on Switch, you get the same general hyper-colorful aesthetic here, and that's something that it sounds like both of us personally really like.
Yeah. It's very quick to get into as well. Like, there's no rambling through menus to get to the online. It's right there on the front page when you boot up the game. Which, a few puzzle games, like, you have a few menu hoops to jump in through to actually get to the online mode. So it's nice that this is here from the get-go. And, like, we're in a good era for puzzle games right now. Like, Puyo Puyo is thriving. Tetris has, like, 8 different versions on the Switch. Lumines is thriving. Like, we have it's a good time, and it's nice to have Puzzle Bobble in the forefront as well.
Yeah, and we can play 2 versions of Panel de Pon via Nintendo Switch Online, so that's obviously key. But yeah, you know, as you were saying, this is the kind of game I can totally see myself booting up once in a while just to get a few online matches in. Or, in my case, you know, if you know, we still got to get you over here to the States for PAX or something now, man, because E3 is whatever it is now. But I can totally, you know, I go to enough conventions and stuff with, like, our fellow content creator friends, like Ant Dude and She Says and whomever, both of whom are also into puzzle games like Panel de Pon and Puzzle Bobble, so I could totally see this being such a great, like, room party game, because it's Puzzle Bobble, and so you get the right kinds of friends together, and you're going to have hours of fun with this, because it is just rank and file Puzzle Bobble, presented very well, and with minimal to no latency, certainly online, but in local play, I mean, there's a 2v2, so unfortunately you can't play 4-player individually, like 4-player free-for-all, but you can do 2v2. So 2 players on one board versus each other. And that, I haven't had a chance to play that, of course, because I don't have 3 friends just ready and waiting to play Puzzle Bobble with me. But I can see that, like, in the right room party setting, enough people who are into Puzzle Bobble, I could see that being an uproariously a good time.
Totally. It's a very situational event, though, and I'm kind of... I'm a bit bummed that online doesn't really have that stuff.
Yeah.
Because online is just 1v1.
Right.
Whereas if you're playing offline, the entire story can be 4-player co-op where you all share one big board. Or, as you said, there's 2v2. And yeah, online is just 1v1, which is... That's a shame. It feels like that stuff should have been online, too. But yeah, if you do have 4 friends in the same room, yeah, this is probably a fantastic time.
Yeah, I do agree. It is very situational in that sense, and it is disappointing that there's no 4-player online. Also, no 4-player again, free for all. Just 1v1v1v1. So it's weird. This is both I would say, a really good version of Puzzle Bobble, especially for a modern platform, which is really nice to have. But at the same time, it does feel a little bit light on actual options and features, right?
Yeah, I always like a few little gimmick modes every now and then, and this outside of the Space Invaders one, it doesn't really have it.
No.
But all that gimmick stuff, in the grand scheme of like sports games and puzzle games, there's stuff you dabble in for a few rounds, and then you usually don't go back to them. So I think it's best to prioritize the core online mode, or the core multiplayer mode even. I do wish they prioritized online a little bit more, just having, all the 4-player options and everything. Yeah. But the core of it is good. And I think the core of it's kind of what matters in the end. But I do wish there was a bit more, a bit more flavoring every now and there. Right. Especially the music too. I think if they had like a big celebration of the entire soundtrack's the entire history of the soundtrack, that would have been great. But instead, you just kind of get this sort of just happy-ish kind of generic-y music.
It's very it kind of falls into the background, right? It's just if you're like us and especially me, like super into video game music, don't like come into this expecting a soundtrack that you're gonna remember outside the game. You're just not. It's perfectly fine, but it falls into the background very quickly, and it is not memorable, really, in any way. Which is fine. At least it's not grating. Like, I'd rather it fall into the background and not be memorable than be annoying and actively obnoxious, right? So, I guess the one other thing I would touch on, and this at least applied to me and my own history with the series, and I did look it up, by the way, so the one I was talking about I played was just Bust-A-Move on Super Nintendo. It was just released as Bust-A-Move, and that's the one I played forever, in my younger years. But the thing that kind of took me aback was because I hadn't played any somewhat recent versions of Puzzle Bobble, I guess, there are power-ups in the bubbles now, which wasn't the case in the old games. So, like, instead of having the guideline that shows you exactly where your bubble's going to land all the time, that's now a power-up. So there is no guideline until you score that power-up, which I thought was interesting. It makes the game harder, but also a little bit more exciting, I think.
It works very well when playing with actual humans, too.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's just, like, surviving against a falling array of bubbles or playing against a computer, you don't really get the same vibe, but it really does change the strategy when playing against someone else. Like, do you go for that immediately so you get more accuracy, or do you keep popping bubbles? And yeah, I actually really like that. There's a bunch of other things like bombs and little coloured orbs that you can sort of hit that makes every other colour fall down. There's a lot of hidden strategy in there. And I guess if you haven't really kept up this series, a lot of that will be pretty new. And yeah, it works well here.
Yeah, agree. There's, like, I'd say probably a handful, maybe 6 or 7 different power-ups. It kind of reminds me of Arkanoid a little bit, the way the power-ups in that work, where you're just kind of getting power-ups that make things easier on you on the fly, but they don't necessarily last the entire match. Some are, like you said, John, one and done, like explosions or directional explosions, or ones that only pop a specific color of bubbles. So yeah, that kind of adds to the variety of it, and especially the moment-to-moment kind of excitement against other human players. Like, I can tell you, with my session with that patron, like I said, we went for over an hour, and there were multiple matches where it was, like, down to the wire, and we were both like, oh god, so close! And, like, you know those, like, really close Puzzle League matches where it's just down to the wire, and it's breathless how exciting it gets. That's the experience I had with that patron in this game multiple times in only the span of an hour. So, like, if you like Puzzle Bobble at all, even though this is, you know, very light on features and extra modes and options and stuff, if you like Puzzle Bobble at all, this is, I think, a really strong version of it that'll scratch that very particular itch that no other puzzle game really does.
Yeah. We've been going for a little while now.
Yeah.
I guess if you've been listening for this long and you're not a fan of puzzle games, then thank you. But also, I strongly believe that puzzle games should be viewed as esports, because they can be so intense. They're some of the most competitive games out there. Like, if you watch matches of Puyo Puyo or competitive Tetris, they are I think a lot of them can be way more extreme than fighting games. It's this very visceral back and forth of wits, and Puzzle Bobble was absolutely up there with those giants.
Absolutely.
And so playing online, I've not actually come across a breathtakingly outstanding player yet. Like, so far, I've managed to body my opponents. But,
okay.
I'm sure there's someone out there who's ready to take me on, but I've not found them yet.
Right. No, I will say that I don't think it doesn't sound like I've played online quite as much as you, but what I've had pretty a similar experience. I haven't run into anyone who's just overwhelmingly better than me. Like, I've won the majority of my matches, and yeah, so. This is a good time to, if you like this game but you don't feel like you're a grand master at it, this might be the time to dip your toes into the online pool and play other people who, aren't necessarily grandmasters themselves, which is always a little bit more fun. Playing someone closer to your own skill level, way more
playing
fun.
This game like a year from now, it's just going to be competitive Puzzle Bobble players. So yeah, now's kind of the time to try online.
And it's funny, you mentioned fighting games. The online actually reminded me of a fighting game a little bit, because they have, like, ranks and everything. Like, right now I'm bronze rank, and so you can rank up through different bronze, silver, gold, I assume, but that happens in a lot of fighting games too, so I just thought that was kind of fun to see. Yeah,
totally. But yeah, it's a strong package. It doesn't necessarily redefine puzzle games or redefine the franchise, but it has, like, this series has been missing for a while on consoles. So
yeah,
I'm welcoming it back with big open arms.
Same, or little open dinosaur arms, as the case may be, right?
Yeah, just like as far as you can.
Yeah. So yeah, to some, if you like Puzzle Bobble, I think we both can pretty easily recommend this for sure. It doesn't redefine the genre, but it's just a strong version of a great puzzle series.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, sounds like that's about it. Anything else you want to mention, man?
Not really. I think that's about it. Yeah, just a nice, chill game. Nice palate cleanser between the big releases that keep coming up.
Cozy even, right?
Yeah, cozy. Very cozy.
Yes, exactly. Well, dude, thank you so much for joining me for this short Puzzle Bobble Every Bubble discussion.
Anytime.
And thank you all for listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. As always, if you'd like what we do here, please do consider supporting us on Patreon. Once again, that's patreon.com/gbgaming, where you can support us for as little as $1 a month, and that gets you into the best gaming Discord community on the internet, bar none. We got to trademark that statement someday. But, you know, if you can't support us on Discord, on Patreon, of course, if you could just like and subscribe right here on YouTube, every little bit helps. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye!